about 3 or 4 months ago, I'm walking home from my parking spot to my apartment door. It's a familiar walk. It's one I've done a lot of times before. Recognize the buildings, recognize the cars, recognize the space. And there's also another familiar feeling. I'm being followed. And my aggressor, a police cruiser. So I'm walking, and they're following me, and I'm walking, and they're following me, and I'm walking, and they're following me. And so I get to my door, and I think in my apartment, I'm safe. You know, in my apartment, things are okay. Well, it wasn't. As soon as I got to the door, I was spotlighted by that police cruiser, and so my anxiety peaked. Images of Mike Brown and Tamir Rice and Oscar Grant are running through my head, and I wonder, will I be a statistic? It might be me next. So I share this story just as a small anecdote of what race is like in this country. There's a way that we think race operates, and there's a way that race actually operates. And I think unless and until we can merge those two conceptualizations, not much is going to happen. So I posit that there are 3 factors that drive this divergence in how we understand race in this country. The first, isolation. So there's something called the Dissimilarity Index in this country, and it measures residential segregation between African Americans and white folks. So what this means is that, so the Dissimilarity Index stands at 0.62, meaning that 62% of African Americans in this country would have to move from their current place of residence for there to be true racial integration. So what's the practical effect of this? We don't love together, we don't worship together, we don't eat together, we're not educated together. There's separation here. So I'm the director of a pilot project called More Than My Brother's Keeper that seeks to advance opportunity for young African-American boys and their families here on the south side of Columbus, Ohio. So in one of our first experiential learning days, a white woman walks into the building that we're hosting an event out of. And she asked the proprietor of the business, are these young men juvenile delinquents? And so she had never met them before, never talked to them before, never got a chance to know their stories, some of which are so harrowing that they would bring adults to their knees. To her, these young men didn't get the benefit of the doubt. There was a presumption of guilt there. And this is a presumption that follows black men across their lives. So isolation does one more thing. Not only does it separate us physically, it also separates us emotionally and spiritually from the other. Isolation is a castle, and in these castles, we're trapped in our comfort zones, and so we never had the opportunity to check this fear against something else. So that brings us to our second point, false narratives. So false narratives are the stories that we tell ourselves about how the world works. We're able to simplify complex issues so they're digestible and we understand them. But then there's the flip side of it too, is that we oversimplify the narratives of people. And we don't let them have the opportunity to tell their own story. So what does this look like? There's a young man also in our program. He's 13 years old. He has dreadlocks, tattoos, wears earrings, so on and so forth. And so this young man has discovered the body of a close family member on the porch of his house. He has a sister who struggles to overcome the mental health issues that are associated with living in the neighborhood that she lives in. He has 2 younger brothers that now he's responsible for. And on top of it all, his mother says that he's the man of the house. And so you can just imagine the pressure that this 13-year-old boy faces on a daily basis. But when we meet him, when he's an adult, we'll say to him, pull up your pants, take those earrings out, learn the value of education and hard work, as if these aren't things that he already knows. But there's a lived reality to this. when we don't let people tell their own story and have their own narrative, we overlay onto them things that are antithetical to what they need in the moment. And so we have to let people tell their own stories, because then we see what they need and we see how we can help and we see how we can get involved. So this brings me to the third point and what causes this conceptual divergence between how we think about race and how race actually operates. When false narratives and isolation combine, they tend to create a lack of hope. For centuries in this country, Black people have held on to hope that slavery is going to end, that Jim Crow is going to end, that systems that deprive them of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are going to end. This hope is all that some people have, and it's what we steal from them through isolation and through the narratives that we tell them about their lives. So I'll conclude my anecdotes with our kids in the program with the final subject. This young man lives with his grandmother and his 3 sisters. He lives with his grandmother and his 3 sisters because his parents don't want him anymore. They have other families, and they're content with those. So because of this, he suffers from oppositional defiance disorder. He has ADHD. He has a number of issues that are affecting him on a daily basis. And so his sister says that she's going to buy a house that's big enough for her brother to live in, because when he's an adult, nobody that he knows is going to want to let him live with them. His social worker suggested that we call the police on him to scare him straight. There is a lack of hope on behalf of the sister, in that she doesn't believe that society is going to be responsive enough for this young man to address the issues that he has. His social worker believes that defaulting to the criminal justice system, something that we've seen the effects of on Black men and Black communities, is the appropriate response. And my fear is that this young man is going to see the hopelessness attendant with his situation, and he's going to believe that he can't do anything better than what we tell him he can. So my racial story. It's not going to matter today when I leave here that what I tried to do was build bridges between different concepts and ideas and people, even when they can't see them. It's not going to matter that I've spent a number of years collecting degrees, so I had the opportunity to be in front of you here today. It's not going to matter that our pilot project has accomplished more than I thought possible, even at the outset. What's going to matter is that when I leave here, I'm going to be a Black man, and I'm going to suffer the indignities that Black people suffer on a consistent basis. I wonder what this world would look like if tonight we all went to sleep and believed that tomorrow can look different. If we believed that it's possible for us to put down the narratives that we hold about other people and let them lead with their story. What that woman didn't understand in the shop was that she was talking about me. She was talking about my brother. She was talking about my father, my friends. She's talking about us. And this is not my story, but she's going to tell me that it is. So my task to each of you today is to go to sleep. Let this work through your head. And when you wake up in the morning, be different. Thank you.